What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Pro Wrestling Escape podcast, your escape from reality. And that was me escaping into here. I'm Kyle, and today we are tackling one of my favorite what if debates, and that is the top 5 wrestlers who have never won the WWE World title. Now, I'm not just going to name names, that's the whole point of this, but digging into the exact matches and storylines where WWE could have made them champion. And before we dive in, make sure you're following on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and hit that subscribe button on YouTube. That way you never miss an episode, and it helps bring even more fans like yourself, wrestling fans like yourself, into this community. Now, let's kick it off with this week in WWE history. September 8th, 2006. On SmackDown, William Regal challenged King Booker for the World Heavyweight Championship. It kind of looked like Regal's big chance here, but thanks to Finlay's shillelagh, the match ended in heartbreak. William Regal never really got his run as world champ. It set the stage perfectly for today's discussion. All-time greats who never held the top prize. I know there are many lists out there, and some of these names are on those lists, some of these names are not. What I tried to do was try to get a couple of wrestlers from different eras. The first wrestler on my list who never held that top prize, the WWE title, Rowdy Roddy Piper. Is considered the golden era, mid-80s, 84 to 87. One of the greatest talkers on the mic ever. I mean, the personality, the excitement explosion, and just the psychoticness of his character drew a lot of people in. I really think he was instrumental in defining the rock and wrestling era. And we all remember when he main evented WrestleMania I in 85 with Mr. Wonderful, and they went up against Hulk Hogan and, of course, Mr. T. But he never won the WWF Championship. Now, where they could have missed it, this is the what if segment that I enjoy, kind of changing history a little bit to see what the outcome would have been. But just imagine if Rowdy Roddy Piper had been the WWF champion heading into WrestleMania I in a singles match against Hogan, still having the other people around, but not so much a tag match. But imagine Hogan winning that belt back on the grandest stage, WrestleMania I. Would have been a mainstream moment, even bigger than I think that we got. Or you could picture Piper winning the belt in late 85, running through challengers like Junkyard Dog or Tito Santana before then Hulk Hogan finally beats him in a huge rematch. So this is what's fun about these kind of episodes is you kind of, what if, and us as wrestling fans, we're always trying to predict what the storylines are going to be. I think what's even more fun sometimes is going back and saying, well, what if this happened? How would that have changed, the course of wrestling to what it is today? But back to Piper, fans were buying tickets to really see him lose. He had a genuine hate to his character, and that's the perfect formula for a heel champ. I mean, as I get older in this world of pro wrestling, I'm 37, I really enjoy watching the heels and how they work the crowd. But for Piper, WWE kept him just below Hulk Hogan's level. And again, I know it was brand new for WWE to get to that level, so they're probably just trying to figure out what's the best case scenario, and that was to push Hogan, and that was the right call. But we got endless feuds with Piper. We got classic promos out of him, but never really the validation of a world title reign. For my next wrestler who never held that top belt, it's a new generation era wrestler. New generation's 93 to about 99. Is Owen Hart, the King of Hearts. He rose to prominence in the new generation era. At WrestleMania 10 in 94, he shocked the world by beating his brother Bret Hart. A clean victory over his brother at Madison Square Garden. Now, where they kind of missed it, I think, SummerSlam 94. Bret Hart versus Owen Hart steel cage. It was the perfect opportunity for Owen to walk out WWF champion at the time. With Bret chasing him into Survivor Series, would have been really an emotional, money-drawing feud. I mean, even later in 97, he had that little run, a Nation of Domination. In the beginning, it kind of felt like a weird fit, but it worked, and that shows you how good Owen Hart was. He could have stepped into Bret's role after the Montreal Screwjob. I mean, with Shawn Michaels and DX running wild, just imagine Owen as the defiant babyface champion taking the fight to DX. The fans overall respected him. He could deliver in the ring. We all know that. And he was actually pretty solid on the mic. And that Hart family bloodline always gave him depth. But WWE never really elevated him past that mid-card level. And of course, tragically, we'll never know how high his ceiling really was. I will never forget watching the pay-per-view Over the Edge. I was young at the time, obviously, watching it with my dad. And as a kid, I think at that time I knew it was scripted. Obviously, still watched it. But, when somebody comes on the TV, if something that you watch like a TV show of yours breaks character and say, Owen Hart tragically passed away, you kind of are like, wait, what? And then as the night went on, just like the mood was just as somber and the show went on. And I remember being pretty emotional as a kid. And that was a tough one. Yeah, so Owen Hart, definitely on my list. The next wrestler, one of my all-time favorites. Love his character in WWF. Enjoyed it in WCW, but specifically this WWF character, Razor Ramon. This is New Generation, right before the Attitude Era really took off, before he left for WCW, so 92 to 96-ish. The bad guy. The coolest character, I think, of the new generation. Debuted in 92, just oozing machismo, right? 4-time Intercontinental Champion, and really the star of one of WWE's first truly iconic matches, the ladder match with Shawn Michaels and at WrestleMania 10. Now, where I think they kind of missed it, 94-95 was while Diesel, also known as Kevin Nash, is WWF champion. Razor was by far more popular than Big Daddy Cool at that point. You talk about big pops, Razor got that pop. He had the charisma, crowd connection, and just the credibility. And just him walking out down that entrance ramp, talk about aura, that guy had it. He could have carried the belt, even if it was just a transitional champion. Just imagine Razor winning the WWF title, the 95 Rumble. And then he can drop it back to Diesel at WrestleMania, kind of that back and forth, which I think today's world, they need to do more of that instead of these 6-month-long, year-long title reigns. It kind of just, it's not predictable. It's more of in a sense like, all right, we have to wait for next season to see what happens, kind of like on a TV show, but with no cliffhanger. But fans would have eaten up Razor as the WWF title holder. Instead, he kind of stayed at the Intercontinental title level. Maybe that was part of the reason he jumped ship to WCW. But the rest after that was NWO history. From there, he became a household name in wrestling, but never as a WWE World Champion once he came back to WWE with NWO. Rest in peace, Scott. The next wrestler on my list, this is number 4, and I'm not going in any order because they're from different eras, and for me, I can't put that in order. Some people can. I just can't. It's not fair. Wrestling was different in each one of these eras. Some are more athletic. Some are better with their storytelling. It's really hard to kind of put that all up into an equation, spit out a number. I'm not that smart, so I'm just giving you just my top 5. And I know you're like, oh, who should be number 1? I'll give you who I think my number 1 would be at the end of my list. So the 4th wrestler on my list is from the PG era, kind of bleeding into the modern era of WWE, and that is Cesaro, the Swiss Superman. So he debuted in 2012 during the PG era, and he is one of the smoothest in-ring workers I think of, the last spanning 2 decades. You got the uppercut machine, of course, the Cesaro swing, the crowd favorite, and just the pound-for-pound strength. You kind of hear that a lot, sometimes too much. This guy is the definition of pound-for-pound strength. Fans loved him. Where I think they kind of dropped I don't want to say drop off, where I think they could have done a what if, like this might have helped catapult him into that next level. It was right after WrestleMania 30. Remember WrestleMania 30 in 2014? He won the first ever Andre the Giant Battle Royal, and the last person, he slammed the Big Show over the top rope. Crowd exploded. At that point, it should have launched him into a WWE title, potentially against Daniel Bryan or John Cena at the time. And the very next night on Raw, if you remember, I had to go back and do some digging, Cesaro announced that he was a Paul Heyman guy. And on paper, That looked like a strap a rocket to his back. You're shooting him up to the moon. But Heyman spent most of the time when he had the mic bragging about Brock Lesnar, ending the Undertaker's streak, and not really getting behind Cesaro and building him. Not to say it's Paul's fault, because Paul is a god on the mic, but I think that's where they kind of could have made a little bit of adjustment to really push Cesaro. And then I think another missed chance was in 2016 with Cesaro, the brand split. SmackDown needed a strong babyface at the time. I thought Cesaro would have been the perfect fit, but they went with AJ Styles. Not a wrong answer. That could have been a spot where they could have plugged him in. But by 2022, Cesaro left WWE and then resurfaced in AEW, where I think he's proving again that he's world championship material or caliber. But in WWE, he was always the guy who made others look great and never the one holding that top belt. All right, my fifth and final wrestler is a current wrestler. I guess you want to call it the modern era, starting around 2022. It's going off of what I've been told and what I've seen about these eras and their names and their years. But the last wrestler on my list, L.A. Knight, yeah. Breakout star of this era. 2022 through today, the crowd's still fully behind him. You got the catchphrases, you got the charisma. In-ring work's pretty solid. Every arena chants his name. But as of now, today, still no world title. I think he's going to get it. It's a matter of time. But right now, he's on my list because I'm kind of thinking me putting him on this list will speak it into existence because I have Triple H's cell phone number. No, I don't. Even if I did, he wouldn't answer. But I think LA Knight has it. And where I think the moments they've missed, a lot of missed moments if you want LA Knight to have that title. One that stands out to me is Money in the Bank 2023. Clear favorite. Fans were ready. Most had picked him. And if he won, it could have been the most organic push, I think, since Daniel Bryan in 2014. But they went with Damian Priest instead, who is not a wrong choice. I really like Damian Priest as a wrestler, as a character. But that could have been a moment where they could have switched and gone to LA Knight. And then Royal Rumble 2024, I think it's another missed chance where he could have won, even if just making him in the final two with Cody. That would have really, I think, elevated him. But the big question remains, will LA Knight end up like Piper, a megastar without the belt, or will WWE finally give him the moment before it's too late and he goes elsewhere? I don't know. Time will tell, of course. Let's say in 2-3 years from now, if I'm still trying to promote this podcast, I might not. And if I don't, I'm okay with it because it means LA Knight did eventually get a title. Or somebody will find it online randomly 2-3 years later and just talk crap about it, say, "Oh, you're wrong," and then I'll just screenshot the date this aired, and there's that. All right, those are my top 5. If I had to pick a number 1 out of that list, now remember that's LA Knight, that was Cesaro, that was Owen Hart, Razor Ramon, and Roddy Piper. I think if I had to pick number 1 out of those 5 wrestlers, it's got to go Piper. It had to be Piper. In that era, he had to have the title, hands down. Number 2, probably Razor. Number 3, LA Knight. Number 4, Owen Hart. Number 5, Cesaro. So there, you got the top 5 out of me. Quit pressuring me. All right, now with the top 5, there are some honorable mentions that I do want to mention. And the first one that almost made the list was Umaga from the Ruthless Aggression era, 2006, 2009-ish. He was a dominant monster heel. In 2007, if he'd have beaten Cena at New Year's Revolution, he could have had a terrifyingly short reign, but he would have had a title reign. So he would have won maybe that night, then maybe the next night on Raw, or the next pay-per-view, Cena would have won it back. Transitional champ. We can let those happen. It's a thing. Next for the honorable mention is a wrestler that is on everybody's short list was Jake the Snake Roberts, golden era, mid-'80s to early 90s. The master of psychology and, of course, the DDT. But between 86 and 88, he was hot enough to carry that belt before eventually he could drop it to Hogan or Macho Man at that time. Another one on the list, Mr. Perfect, new generation-ish, early 90s, one of the greatest technicians ever in the ring. And the Perfect Plex, love that move. But at SummerSlam 91, remember he dropped the Intercontinental title to Bret Hart in a classic. But imagine if that same match was actually for the WWF title. It would have been the perfect passing of the torch moment. And I think would have cemented Mr. Perfect as a world champ before handing it off to Bret. Again, what if? I think he could have been the top guy. Before we wrap up, just a quick note on the segment Crowd Speaks. I love reading and reacting to your hot takes, but to make it a weekly segment, I need more of your voices in the mix. So send me your bold predictions, your spicy hot takes, or even your questions about WWE history or what my favorite, quote unquote, is. Drop them in the comments, DM me on Instagram at Pro Wrestling Escape, or reply on YouTube. The more you throw at me, the more often we can make Crowd Speaks happen consistently. So bring the heat. I want to hear what you think. Now, before we go, one quick favor. I'm going to do this every episode. If you are enjoying the Pro Wrestling Escape podcast, please hit follow on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and subscribe on YouTube. It might seem small, but these reviews and subscribes tell the platforms, hey, this show deserves to reach more fans. That helps this grow, gives me more of your takes, and we can dive even deeper into the wrestling that we all love. This is your Pro Wrestling Escape. I'm Kyle. Catch you next week.